So congratulations, you've received a grant. Now we're going to talk about managing your federal award post-award. So the objectives are to provide an overview of key aspects of managing a federal award, that it's a legal agreement between the Department of Defense and your grantee organization. And your grantee organization is someone like the Henry Jackson Foundation, the Geneva Foundation, or your university. Start and end dates, which are known as your period of performance, the reports that are required as part of your award agreement, and the budget process in terms of the funds that are obligated to your award and that are billed on a monthly basis. Also, the terms and conditions of your award. So please remember that your grant is a legal document. It's an agreement between the Department of Defense through the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences and the grantee organization and you. So you, as the principal investigator and the grantee organization, still have legal responsibilities regarding this grant award. Requirements of the award are guided by regulations that govern grants in the Department of Defense. When everything else fails, please read the grant award agreement. Do not assume that the Henry Jackson Foundation or the Geneva Foundation or your university have sole responsibility for that grant. Understand that you, as the principal investigator, also are responsible for the agreement in that grant document. So when you're looking at the legal agreement, the grant document, it's clearly defined in the base award document. And the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences terms and conditions, as well as the TSNRP supplement to the terms and conditions. Carefully read the documents because those documents are based on the proposal you submitted to include the specific aims of your project or the statement of work based on the personnel that you'll be hiring, and it includes information about the submission and completion of progress reports and what is required in your final report. It's important, I cannot stress enough, it is important to carefully read through that base document and the terms and conditions to ensure that you will meet the legal requirements of this legal document. So there's a flow of communication that you need to be aware of. The Department of Defense has a flow of communication with the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, where TSNRP resides. And then TSNRP has a flow of communication with your grantee organization, again, such as the Geneva Foundation, your university, or the Henry Jackson Foundation. The grantee organization communicates with you, the principal investigator. The start and end dates of your grant are delineated in your award agreement. Be careful. The start date of your award is not the date on your start letter that you will receive. The start date is the date indicated in that award agreement. So for example, if you have a 6-month progress report due, it is due from the date in the award agreement, not the start date of your letter. Start and end dates are known as your period of performance, and the research activities or the evidence-based practice project activities cannot be started before secondary approval has been obtained from the Tri-Service Nursing Research Program. So research activities that you may not do until you have secondary approval are you cannot recruit subjects, you cannot send emails or post flyers to recruit participants, and you certainly cannot collect data. Study teams may, however, do some things prior to receiving the start letter, such as hiring personnel, scheduling rooms for interviews, ordering supplies, As long as none of your research activities are conducted, you can do these things to prepare for conducting the research activities. And then an official start letter from TSNRP will be sent to your grantee organization, and then they will notify you as the principal investigator once that secondary review has been completed and you have a start letter. So there are some required reports, and in those base agreements, it tells you what reports are required. These reports are a way of monitoring and reporting your financial and program performance. So all of those reports have to be submitted through your grantee organization to TSNRP, and they must include the award number. Your progress reports, such as your 6-month report and your annual report and your final report, are delineated in that base agreement, and you need to follow the instructions about completing those reports. The progress report, in terms of the interim report, just gives TSNRP an idea of how you are doing within the first 6 months of the report period starting. So for example, you may not have very much in that first 6-month report other than you've received IRB approval, you've ordered your equipment, you've ordered your supplies, things like that, but it is a way of showing your progress. In terms of the reports going to TSNRP, you need to make sure that there is an electronic copy of the annual progress report sent to the executive director. But you don't send it directly. You send it to your grantee organization, they review it, and then they will send it on to the executive director and the program manager at TSNRP. The final report and the termination closeout of your award, you have no more than 90 calendar days after the expiration of the grant to submit the final report, which consists of one electronic copy, the financial closure forms, which have to do with your budget performance, and the grantee's release and assignment of funds. So you have to be able to show that you spent all of your money, how you spent it over the period of your award, and what results did you receive in this final report. Again, the report does not go from you, the principal investigator, to TSNRP directly. The report goes to your grantee organization. They usually assist with filling out your budget pages, because if you've hired personnel, there are fringe and benefits in those personnel costs that you may not know the exact numbers. So they will help you fill that out. And then the study closure report also must be submitted from the institutional review board to acknowledge their approval that you are closing out your study with that IRB. So let's talk about budget for a minute. As the principal investigator, you also have budgetary responsibilities. You are a fiduciary. To have fiduciary responsibility means to hold something in trust. You're given something for safekeeping. So in this case, you are fiduciary because you are given public money, federal money, and you are expected to safeguard that federal money and to spend it in the best way possible so that you uphold the public trust. Fiduciaries are responsible to project beneficiaries. So you're responsible to TSNRP, you're responsible to your grantee organization, and really you're responsible to the tax-paying public of the United States. You'll be working with your grantee organization, and you'll be asking them to order your supplies, to order your equipment, to manage your travel. They will help you understand what's allowable and what's not allowable. The funds obligated to the award are typically billed on a monthly basis, although there are some exceptions to that rule. The grantee organization will manage your grant based on the approved budget. You never touch any of the money that you receive from this federal award. It goes to your grantee organization, and they help you spend it by ordering the supplies and the equipment and hiring personnel for you. So for example, if you're at a university, you typically work with a grant contracting officer at your university to make sure that those things get done. And if you're hiring personnel, that they hire a person for the set amount of time that you need them at the set amount that you put in your budget, so that you stay within your budgetary constraints. So the budget is the financial expression of your proposal. You submitted a budget with your proposal, you submitted a budget justification, and as much as possible, you're expected to adhere to that budget and have it be supported by that budget justification. Deviations from the budget and the program plan must be reported to Tri-Service. Again, you don't call them directly, you work through your grantee organization. Now, sometimes you may have spent less money than you expected, and you want to move money from one area to another area because you need more money in another area. You can ask permission to do that, and your grantee organization typically knows the rules surrounding moving money from one area to another, and they will know when special permission needs to be granted. Do not assume that you can move money without TSNRP's approval. That approval may be granted or it may be denied. So again, that's why you shouldn't assume that you will actually receive approval. And you can transfer funds between work and budget categories based on the terms of the award. So they may actually tell you in the terms of the award what money could possibly be transferred. If you're buying equipment, you are responsible for maintaining that equipment and the supplies in good order. You are responsible for maintaining good research records and any inventory of any supplies. You're also responsible for getting permission to incur costs up to 90 days before receiving the start letter. So as I mentioned before, you can do some things like advertise for personnel or order supplies or purchase some equipment up to 90 days prior to your start letter, but you must receive your award base agreement first so that the money is in the account at your grantee organization. And then you can ask Tri-Service for an advance, if you will, for money to do those things prior to receiving your start letter while you're waiting for IRB approval. Prior approval is required for foreign travel. So if you think you want to go to Ireland to disseminate your research results, you must have prior approval, and typically foreign travel is not approved. Prior approval is needed to extend your project. So do not assume that you will receive a no-cost extension, or that if you need more money and you don't have any money left in your account, that Tri-Service will automatically give you more money. You cannot receive more money if you don't have approval, and obviously you cannot receive a no-cost extension if you don't have approval. A request for a no-cost extension must be submitted in writing at least 30 days prior to when the project period is expected to expire. So all federal grants are subject to audits based on federal regulations. And any recipients or subrecipients of more than $500,000, and soon it will be increased to $750,000, are subject to being audited. Well, your grantee organizations, such as the Geneva Foundation, Henry Jackson, or your university, typically have more than these amounts of money that they are receiving, so they are subject to auditing. This is why they work very carefully with you to make sure that you stay within the guidelines of your base award agreement and of all the federal guidelines surrounding your grant agreement. Make sure that your grantee organization can show how your money was spent. So they're going to work closely with you on showing what you bought, why you bought it, that it supports what you have in your proposal. I highly recommend, however, that you keep your own budget as well. Keep your own Excel spreadsheet and keep a track record of what money you've spent. So, for example, if you look at the budget that you receive on a monthly basis from your grantee organization, look over it carefully, because you may notice that they billed you for something that actually wasn't from your grant, it was from someone else's grant. So you want to make sure that you catch that right away and notify your grantee organization so that they can correct the budget immediately. So again, congratulations, you've received a federal award, you've received a grant, now go forth and do great things.